Alright, I'm sorry for the shitty quality of this video, but fuck it. Here we are. Video me explaining Capricorn ascendant. So, with Capricorn, to me, Capricorn is associated with conquerors and conquering things. You can see as we look at all the nakshatras that are within Capricorn. So, when you look at Uttarashada, it is associated with Ganesha because the symbolism is an elephant tusk. And Ganesha is a deity who is known as the remover of obstacles. And Ganesha, well, this is his story in a quick nutshell. Parvati created him to guard her while she bathes or something. Shiva is away. Shiva comes and sees that, someone is here and wants to see his wife, and Ganesha doesn't allow it. Ganesha and Shiva fight. Shiva's unable to get the better of Ganesha. All the other male pantheon gods fight Ganesha. Ganesha wins. It wasn't until Vishnu came up with some trick to deceive and distract Ganesha that they end up winning, decapitated him. When they did that, Parvati comes out the shower. She's mad. All the female goddesses fights the male gods or whatever. Vishnu's like, listen, we gotta go revive him. Let's find something to replace his head with. They find an elephant. They revive him, and they also in order to make things right, also allow him the ability to be praised before other gods. So we've seen that through adversity, through combat, his status elevated. Same thing with Bhishma, the warrior that's associated with the Nista Nakshatra. This is actually a long story because the deity of the Nista Nakshatra is like the Vasus, the 8 elemental deities and gods or whatever. The tale with that is like essentially these deities like was stealing this guru's cow or playing like some prank and stealing his cows or whatever, and the guru or whoever the owner of the cow was catches them, and he was going to curse them or hex them to be human or be reborn as a human or a mortal or whatever. And they pled and asked and begged them to don't curse them or do something to change it. So he changes it so that they won't live life as a mortal when they're reborn or whatever for a long time. Except for the ringleader of who came up with the idea to play these pranks on this guru and steal his cows. So what happens is that these Vasus, these elemental deities or whatever, they are reborn through the goddess of the river Ganges and some king or whatever. And I think one of the requirements for the goddess that she gave to the king was that, we can be together, but you can't question me. The moment that you question me or whatever, I'm gone. So she gives birth to 7 kids with this guy, and she drowns each baby. And when they had an 8th kid, the guy finally speaks up and intervenes and stops her from drowning the 8th baby. And when that happens, she leaves him, and the king has that baby. That baby is Bhishma. So that's how the elemental deities sort of paid their karmic debt, because they was hexed. They was punished to live life as a mortal because they was playing pranks and stealing like some guru's cow or whatever. And the ringleader, who had to live a longer life than normal as a mortal, was named Bhishma. So this character, who is known as a great warrior, who was able to choose like his time of death, and who took a vow of celibacy, I forget the exact details of the reasoning, is associated with Denista and Capricorn. So we seen, and he comes from royalty because his father was like a king. So we see that in Denista and in Denista and in Uttarashada through the story of Ganesha and through Bhishma, there is an elevation in one's status in some way, shape, or form. Then we have in Shravana, Indra loses his land to some demon named Mahabali. and he goes to Vishnu for help to regain it. Vishnu incarnates as a Brahmin child known as Vamana, and the Brahmin child goes to Mahabali to have a wish fulfilled, a request fulfilled, and for whatever reason, I forgot the details, Mahabali can't deny or turn down these requests. And the request that the incarnation of Vishnu made was he wanted 3 paces, 3 steps worth of land. And Mahabali was confused, like, why would you want such little land? Ask for something else or get more. And Shukracharya, the guru of the Asuras, the guru of Mahabali, was like, hey, don't give this land to this kid. Mahabali didn't listen, and the guru Shukracharya made some attempt to intervene and stop him from giving this land to Vamana, the avatar of Vishnu, but in the process, Shukracharya ends up getting stabbed in the eye and losing the eye in this process of intervening. And that's when Vamana, and the Brahmin child, turns into a giant. And in 2 steps, he regained all of the land that was lost and stolen from Indra by Mahabali. But he had one more step left. And that is when Mahabali offered his head, and Vishnu steps on his head. But because Mahabali decided to offer his head as a final step for, Vishnu to step on, Vishnu, I believe, granted him immortality or revived him or something. Something grand was done for Mahabali due to his selfless act of, sacrificing himself. So in all these 3 nakshatras, we see that there is some type of elevation in status for Capricorn ascendant people, and or these people will at one point become an important figure, or they will become an important figure, or they are viewed as someone who is very important, viewed as someone that's very disciplined. Because, for one, the planet that rules Capricorn is indeed Saturn, a planet that's associated with things that take time and discipline. And then the yoni animal associated with Uttarashada is a mongoose. The mongoose yoni doesn't have a counterpart. So there's there could be a lonely, serious sense to Capricorn. But then you also have Shravana, who is yoni animal, is a monkey. And then you have Denista, who is a female lion. So there definitely is a competitive or warrior aspect to Capricorn, which you need if you are going to be someone important or in a business career field. Because if you look at the Nista Nakshatra with the female lions are the hunters, while the male lion sticks around and protects the land, the pride land, but the females, they be hunting. And then if you look at the yoni animal for Shravana, it's a monkey. A female monkey, I believe, but a monkey nonetheless. You can make the connection of the monkey with Hanuman and the Vanaras, the little monkey deities who accompanied Hanuman and Lord Ram to retrieve his wife Sita. You can associate the connection of the monkey with Hanuman and those Vanaras, the monkey deities. And the mongoose for Uttarashada, they're very smart and clever. They're capable of killing and defeating a snake. And then there's this war theme. Bhishma was in a war in Denista, and Ganesha is offered or supposedly credited with depicting the events of the Mahabharata war. So we see authorship, penmanship. Hanuman was was credited with being like an author too, the monkey deity, who you can make a connection with Shravana. And I can't think of no authorship connection with Denista. But we see a theme of conquering and conquering things. We see authorship. We see elevation in status with Capricorn ascendant. I'm making sure that I'm not missing anything else. I'm looking at my notes. We also see that, these people, Capricorn ascendant people, could be very slick and very clever. We can see them be slick and clever because of maybe Vishnu and Shravana Nakshatra. All depictions or stories of Vishnu, for the most part, he is very slick and witty and cunning. Aside from this story of him and Shravana Nakshatra, of him becoming a child and deceiving this demon and getting the land back in 3 steps as a giant, we also have this tale of Mahishasura, or Mahiniasura, the female demon buffalo, who had asked for a wish that she be invincible and that the only way she could be killed or defeated is by a child of Vishnu and Shiva. And that's when Vishnu incarnates as a woman and the incarnation has sex with Shiva, and those two create the offspring Ayapa, who I talk about more in detail in Chitra and in Vishaka Nakshatra, and who I talk about a little bit in the Libra Ascendant video. But we see that cleverness. He incarnated because a woman made a wish that only a child of Vishnu and Shiva, an offspring from both of them, could defeat her. And that should be genetically or physiologically, whatever, impossible. 2 men cannot produce a kid. But he incarnated himself as a woman and was thus able to have an offspring that could defeat this woman. What else do I have to say about this? So we see that there could be a clever nature to Capricorn. They could achieve success and power through cleverness. And we can see that these people can have trouble and karma with their teachers and gurus, because Mahabali and Shravana Nakshatra did not listen to his guru Shukracharya, and because he didn't listen, he lost everything in a sense. So the Capricorn ascendant person has the great ability to achieve maybe a great status in life career-wise, and also they may be very susceptible to losing it also if they maybe do not listen to their teachers or follow the wrong teachers and teachings. I'm looking at my notes, making sure I don't miss nothing. And then highlighting the warrior aspect of this sign again, we see that Mars is exalted here. Mars is associated with brotherlyhood and manly things and weapons and piercing, and is exalted in the sign of Capricorn, which originally comes from the 10th house of career, and it's a sign that Saturn rules. To be real competitive, to be real successful and dominant and prominent in your life and in your career and in your field, you need to be driven and disciplined and motivated and determined. You gotta be sort of mean and an animal in a sense. So it makes sense. We getting all the themes and stuff of what Capricorn is associated with. This is also the sign where Jupiter is debilitated. So in this sign, we can see that intelligence and wisdom could maybe be perverted and directed towards material gains and success versus maybe super spiritual things and stuff like that. And now with that being knocked out the way, we're going to go and jump to making sure I'm not missing nothing before I go ahead and... Alright, we're going to go to the houses now. The second house of Capricorn is, Aquarius. The second house is associated with like the immediate family that you come from. It's associated with your own personal wealth, the money that you make, and your relationship with money, and maybe give you a general idea of the background of the people from the immediate family you come from, how they might have gotten their money. Second house is your mouth. It's your eyes, your nose, your throat, and I'm looking at my notes as usual, so I don't care. You see me looking down my head there a lot. With this being a Saturn co-rule sign, this being a Saturn rule sign that's Rahu co-ruled, I would say the person would have to be disciplined and careful with their wealth, while they might also scheme, plan, and plot innovative ways to acquire wealth through gambles and ventures that might be risky. Now, the Saturn aspect of Aquarius, we see the Saturnian features of being disciplined and orderly and structured and maybe gathering people together for a common purpose in order to raise and gain money. But in sidereal Vedic astrology, Aquarius is supposedly co-ruled by Rahu. So Rahu is not a physical planet. It's like an imaginary planet, a shadow planet, a mathematical point. It's something that is unseen, something that deals with growth and expansion and forward thinking. It's the head. So Rahu's like associated with like greed and fulfilling all your senses and pleasures. And it's sitting in the second house associated with your own personal wealth. And Aquarius originally comes from the 11th house of large social network circles, organizations, and gains. You could maybe be plotting and scheming on ways to accumulate masses of wealth through the help of others. But Saturn is karma, so you would have to be careful about how you go about trying to maybe quickly generate money, because if you don't go about maybe rallying and gathering people in the right way, then you could potentially lose all this wealth. Just like how Mahabali lost his land, or how Indra lost his land to Mahabali, you could lose your stuff. So I would say, just from looking at this house alone, the Capricorn ascendant person, which you could probably give this advice to any fucking body, probably more so than usual, they need to be careful of how they go about trying to make their wealth. They could experience turbulences in how they accumulate their money if they are not careful, if they are too impatient, if they do underhanded methods and try to achieve it, they could lose it as quickly as they try to get it. So those are like the main things I see for the second house. Maybe you come from a family background where gambling could be prevalent, where your family relatives and members, may have accumulated their wealth due to having a nice network circle and through maybe working together with groups and organizations or whatever. That's all I could think of when I seen Aquarius being in the second house for Capricorn ascendant. Now for the third house of Capricorn ascendant being Pisces, you could have a distant relationship with siblings or maybe become a very creative abstract writer or author, especially with the first two nutcratures in Capricorn. You might travel around a lot at a young age since this house is associated with the neighborhood and short travels, and Pisces is connected to foreign things. Why did I say you could have a distant relationship with your siblings? The third house is associated with siblings, specifically younger sibling. It's associated with skills with hands. It's associated with written communication, social media, because you use your hands for Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. So it's written communication and social media and short distance travel and siblings or younger sibling, your neighbors, your neighborhood, and your friends maybe. Pisces originally comes from the 12th house of foreign things, isolated things, hospitals, jails, bed pleasures, sleep, meditation, and stuff like that. So, and it's also where Mercury is debilitated. The intelligence is not so logical. The intelligence is not so straightforward. So it's a bit perverted. It's a bit twisted. Um, and with such an abstract or artistic sign being positioned in a house that is associated with your skills, with your hands, and your bravery, your courage, we could see maybe an artisan with Capricorn ascendant. A Capricorn ascendant person, they might be very artistic with their hands maybe or something. Or a Capricorn ascendant person, they could experience maybe those 12th house themes of isolation and distance with their siblings. And what else could I say? I couldn't really think of much when I took notes of how Pisces could play a role. But I could just say maybe a distant relationship with your siblings. Maybe that's the best thing I could think of. Maybe frequent traveling could be seen. Let me see if I had anything else in my notes. But yes, I could definitely see some type of author, a very creative or an imaginative author or artistic skills, because this is where Venus is exalted. Venus is associated with, arts and beauty and sexual things and all those good things. This is where Mercury is debilitated. Written communication, your intelligence, your logical thinking is now in this abstract, out of the box sign. And then I told you one of the main themes of Capricorn, 2 out of 3 of the nakshatras is associated with authorship. When you look at Uttarashada and the elephant tusk, and the elephant tusk being connected to Ganesha, and Ganesha being credited with being the author of the Mahabharata, and if you look at Shravana Nakshatra, and the Yoni animal being a monkey, and the monkey can be associated with Hanuman, and Hanuman is credited with like offering and writing or depicting something. I forgot the name of it. So 2 out of 3 of the nakshatras in Capricorn is associated with authorship, and we could really see those skills be shown with the Pisces in the 3rd house for Capricorn ascendant. So something like that you might see for Capricorn ascendant. And then if we jump to the 4th house for Capricorn ascendant, the 4th house is Aries. I don't know why I had to pause and think about it. But yes, the 4th house is Aries. And my notes say mother could be selfish, alpha, independent, strong-minded, or maybe there could be a priority to acquire home and land. I say this because Aries originally comes from the 1st house. The 1st house is your head, maybe like your forehead, which contains your brain. Yeah. The 2nd house is odd. The 2nd house is mainly associated with your eyes and your nose and your mouth and your throat. And the 1st house, if my memory serves right, is associated with your body, your overall body vitality and health, and like your forehead. What's in your forehead area is your brain. And Aries is a Martian rule sign. And it's stated that men stereotypically are more maybe logical than women, and women are more emotional. Men are more logical and women are more emotional. And I would say like the planet that's the opposite of Mars is fucking Venus. And even though Aries might be the Mutricone sign of Mars, and the Mutricone sign of Venus is Libra, I think the sign that illustrates the more emotional side or out of the logic side of Venus is when it's exalted in Pisces. So I say that to say that we see that with, I don't know why I just gave all those gems, but with Aries in the 4th house, we see that your mind your life's body or focus could be on the home. Yes, you could be focused on maybe prioritizing acquiring a home, acquiring land, and or your mother could just really, your mother or mother figure could display Martian, Aryan characteristics or qualities such as, like I said, being impulsive, being independent, and being alpha. Sun is exalted in this sign. So you could feel maybe very prideful or arrogant or really identify with your home, with your property, with your mother or mother figure. Your mother or mother figure could really be arrogant or prideful and identify with the home in some way, shape, or form. Yes, maybe just in a general sense, to not tongue tie myself and keep talking around in circles, the Capricorn ascendant person could really probably prioritize acquiring just the home and land. Having the home right, material wise, could be a top priority for the Capricorn ascendant person. And Aries is where Saturn is debilitated, because Saturn is like discipline and orderly and structured and patience. And Aries is the opposite. Aries is selfish. It's number one. It's Umar numeral. It's the first of the zodiac signs. It's impulsive. And it's just fiery and impulsive. And it's like a bunch of energy, but it's not disciplined energy. It's not focused energy. So, like I said, we can just see an impulsive nature with the mother, or impulsive nature with you and your household, or impulsive natures and decisions being made when you are in your home or home-like dwellings. You can be like, that's where a lot of impulsiveness could be made, and where you could maybe what could I say? Yeah, I don't know. Just very impulsive. And we can see those qualities show in the 4th house. Then, if we go to the 5th house, the 5th house is Taurus. The 5th house is Taurus. And the 5th house is associated with children and learning. Those are the main things I associate the 5th house with, is children and learning. Because 5th and the 5th is 9th, which is teaching, and 9th from the 9th is 5th, which is learning. Children have to learn. The 9th house is associated with teachings of father. So the 9th house is like the father and the teacher, and the 5th house is the children and the student. Taurus is a sign that can be associated with lust. This is where the moon is exalted. So the Capricorn ascendant person could really lust and desire children in some sense. They could really lust and desire to have kids with this ascendant. You become maybe very possessive or obsessive over children. Education could revolve around things that'll bring in more money, since Taurus originally comes from the 2nd house, which is associated with your own personal wealth and finances. And or if not children, Capricorn ascendant person could really lust and desire to have subordinates, to have underlings. You could be very possessive or obsessive over your employees, the people who work for you. You could really care about them and all that good stuff. So you could either really maybe obsess or desire to have children, or maybe underlings and subordinates and students up underneath you. And the mind, yes, because this is where moon is exalted. Like I said, your education can maybe revolve around things that will bring in money. And I know you're probably thinking, well, no shit, when you want to go to school for something that will bring in money? But some people go to school for things that doesn't really have a strong job field, or it isn't a field where you're just rolling in money. But your education could be really focused and geared towards maybe something that's going to bring you money. But in a general nutshell and sense, I just see that potentially the Taurus and fifth house person could just be real obsessive and desiring to have children, the desire to have children, the desire to have someone up underneath them, like a student or an employee and subordinate or something like that. And then we'll look at the sixth house, which is Gemini. And the sixth house is associated with servants, slaves. Yeah, the sixth house is associated with servants, and it's associated with slaves, and it's associated with diseases, small pets and animals. And the sign of Gemini is here. A sign that really comes from the third house of skills with hands. A sign that deals with multiplicity, duplicity, multiple things, and it deals with the youngest sibling. If I didn't say that, skills with hands. What did I say? I know I said a lot. We could maybe see an affliction to the hands or nervous system could be seen. Dealing with multiple illnesses or a multitude of debts could be seen, because Mercury is the offspring of Moon. Moon stays in a new nutshatra every single day. Mercury doesn't stay that far behind between what sign. It's no more than one sign away from whatever sign the sun is in, and it's like the fastest moving planet because the moon isn't a planet. So Mercury is moving fast when it goes through the signs. So it's constantly moving. And then Gemini is associated with the theme of duality and twins. And with it, it's being associated with the hands, and it's in the house of afflictions, a Dashana house. There could be an affliction, like I said, to your hands, to your nervous system. You could be dealing with multiple illnesses, multiple debts. You have own multiple pets. And then you can really see the health issues. If you look at my Secret of Gemini Ascendant video, I know I highlighted the prominent theme of health issues revolving around this sign. And then if you even look at the original house where Gemini comes from, it being the third house of your skills with your hands, you can see surgery, because 8 places from the 8th house is the third house. The 8th house is associated with death and transformation, and then 8 places from that would be the higher form of the 8th house. The third house, surgery, or another sign in Karaka of death-like things. So we could just see a multitude of maybe a likelihood of you, maybe of a Capricorn ascendant person, maybe dealing with more than one type of maybe health issue or affliction, maybe something, the issue with your nervous system or hands to some type of degree could be seen. And that's like the main thing that I see. Multiple pets, multiple debts, multiple illnesses of some kind, and maybe an emphasis of it being related to maybe your hands and or maybe associated with your nervous system or some kind of that sort. We look at the 7th house. The 7th house is Cancer. 7th house is associated with your spouse, the person you marry, intimate one-on-one encounters and stuff in relationships with people. The 7th house is Cancer, and Cancer is associated with the 4th house, the relationship with the mother figure, indoor dwellings, things that make you feel nice and secure, like your house, like your car. Your nurturance, your comfort, that emotional mother love could be received through like your partner. It could be received through your spouse. Partner could be your home and place where you retreat to find comfort and put your guard down, especially with Mars being debilitated here. Mars is that warrior planet, and now is in a sign that's associated with like motherliness and nurturance of some kind. So now it's like, especially if you look at the signs that are in Cancer, Ponya Vasu being associated with Aditi, the mother goddess. Pushya being associated with Brihaspati, the personification of the personification of Jupiter in a sense, nurturing people with knowledge and wisdom. And then you have Aslesha, the deity of the Nagas, these underground serpent deities who, and snakes are associated with many taboo things. Yeah, they're associated with many taboo things and occult knowledge. We could just potentially see that in Cancer. The person, I don't know, in Cancer, they could just nurture through intelligence, but I don't know, I'm getting off topic. There's nurturing qualities in a general sense in the sign of Cancer, and with it being in the 7th house, we could see that the Capricorn ascendant spouse could, I don't really have nothing negative or special to say, could be a place of nurturance and guidance and rest and comfort in a general sense. And if we look at the 8th house, I have a lot to say, just like I did with the 6th house. Now, the 8th house is Leo, and the 8th house is associated with sex, death, trauma, inheritances, things that you inherit through death, and psychological transformation, because sex and near-death experiences can be sex, death, and near-death experiences could be transformational to somebody, either physically or psychologically. Now, Leo is associated and ruled with the Graha, Sun. Sun is a karaka of your ego, your soul, yourself. So, we can see that the soul, that the Capricorn person, ascendant person, will experience a lot of 8th house events. It will experience a lot of 8th house events because Leo's associated with Sun. Sun is you, it's your ego, it's your soul. And Leo's also a sign that's associated with leadership. If you look at my Leo ascendant videos, it's associated with leadership and being the foremost of something. And the sign of Leo could be associated with inheritances because of Maga and the Petries, the ancestors and stuff. And how I broke down that, all of Leo is like associated with like leadership. Leaders or ancestors, they build things that is later given to descendants, to our successors, to the next generation. They leave things behind. Buildings and houses that we are in, the people who build these buildings and houses and vehicles and stuff that we use, they are likely not alive no more. Or the person who created the blueprint for the stuff that we use are probably not alive anymore, but we are benefiting off of the sweat of their labor. So there could be a theme of inheriting something with the Capricorn ascendant, with Leo being in the 8th house, and with Leo being associated with the Sun, and Sun not only just being a karaka of you, but also the father. I theorize the Capricorn ascendant person could have a karma with maybe inheriting something from the father figure, or the Capricorn ascendant person with Leo in the 8th house can experience a lot of near-death experiences, especially when you look at all of the nakshatras that fall into Capricorn. Even though with Uttara Ashada, the deity is the Vishvadevas, which is translated to universal gods and deities, I imagine the two like head honchos for Uttara Ashada to be like Krishna, the incarnation of Vishnu, but specifically Krishna in his Vishvarupa form, where he reveals to Arjuna on the battlefield like this form that shows him the existence of everything, like how everything in the universe starts and ends and begins in him, like showing him like all of time, like the beginning of time, the middle of time, and the end of time, showing him this cosmic, orgasmic, overwhelming ayahuasca, DMT, Mike Tyson toad oil experience. And yes. And then if you look at Ganesha, so I got off topic. Now I'm back on track. Now we'll go back to the Vishvarupa form that Krishna had showed to Arjuna on the battlefield. You can connect Krishna to Vishnu, the sustaining deity, the sustaining god. Vishnu incarnates on Earth several times and then dies, and eventually incarnates again. In a sense, Vishnu is a deity who experiences many deaths. Ganesha, because it's an elephant head and the elephant tusk is associated with Uttarashada, and Uttarashada stands for later victory, long-lasting victory, he experienced death. He has his head decapitated and then is brought back to life with a head of an elephant and raised in status. Bhishma, or the Vasus and Dhanista, they're reborn as humans, drowned as babies, except for Bhishma, and he has a long-lasting life, but he is known as a great warrior who kept his vow of celibacy. And even though he suffered a fatal blow on the battlefield, he was able to decide when was he going to die. He wasn't dying immediately right away from his fatal wound that he suffered on the battlefield. And like I said, just like how even though Ganesha had his head decapitated, he was brought back to life, how the Vasus and Dhanista were drowned and then, back to humans. And even though Vishnu incarnates as, these incarnations and then dies, he comes back to Vishnu. It's like death is not permanent. Death isn't real. They come back to life. The Capricorn ascendant person can experience a lot of near-death experiences. And that's highlighted when you look at Gemini in the 6th house. And that's highlighted when you look at Leo in the 8th house. The soul experiences these 8th house traumatic, dramatic events. And let me see what else my notes said. Well, and then in another sense, I don't know, because the 8th house also represents your spouse's wealth and the in-laws, your in-laws' wealth. Yeah, the spouse's wealth and his family, your in-laws. You could inherit something from your in-laws. That's what you could inherit. I don't know. You could just inherit, either you could inherit something from your father figure after like maybe he dies, or maybe your father figure or your father-in-law, your spouse's and partner's father, they die and you inherit something, or they experience like a near-death experience, like maybe some type of injury happens on the job, and because of that injury he can sue and is entitled to money for an injury or whatever until he dies. For the rest of his life you get this money, and that money trickles down to you. Some type of event like that could happen. Yes, or maybe your spouse could end up being like some type of your spouse could elevate and rise in status because Leo's associated with leadership through maybe some type of near-death experience between him and his family. He elevates and rises in status, and maybe could be like some type of power of attorney or something. Who knows? But moving on, the ninth house. The ninth house, I'm looking at my notes. Virgo. And remember what I told you about the difficult karma with teachers? We can see that right here with Capricorn ascendant. So, the ninth house is associated with teachers of father or father figure, and long distance travel, faith and beliefs. Virgo originally comes in the sixth house of Prabdha karma, debts, small pets and animals, diseases, and small pets and animals and diseases and all that good stuff. Day-to-day routine things and bills that we face on a day-to-day basis. Again, Mercury is a planet that goes through multiple nakshatras, or not multiple nakshatras. It's the fastest moving planet. It's the offspring of Moon, who moves through a different nakshatra every single day. So Mercury in the mercurial signs could be wishy-washy in a sense. You know, they can be very wishy-washy and do multiple things. A theme of multiplicity can be seen wherever maybe Gemini or Virgo is at. Never maybe just one thing. Multiple things. And wherever Virgo is, there is some type of affliction, because that's the original house that they come from. And Virgo is like a sign that wants to take care of things or fix things or better things with their intelligence and logic. For them to fix or better something, there has to be something to matter. So what we can see with this house is that, let me see my notes so I don't have to guess too much. Your teacher or father figure may be involved in the medical field or involved in some type of profession that involves serving or taking care of multiple people due to the nature of Virgo. You could acquire a lot of debt through teachers and or teaching. You could, have multiple teachers. You could search, you could maybe, I don't know, be searching for a teacher or guidance, and you could end up running through multiple teachers or father-like figures looking for answers and guidance and advice or whatever it may be in life. You may have trouble or issues with the teachings or guidance that your father or father figure may have tried to give in or bestow to you. You might have felt robbed or cheated in some way, shape, or form, maybe with the teachings of the father figure or with teachers in a general sense. Your teachers, also contradictory to what I just said, could be very smart, because this is where Mercury is exalted. Your teachers could be very smart, or you perceive them to be smart, which is why you went after them. But you may also feel that they outsmarted you, or maybe they're not willing to give that knowledge to you, or some way, shape, or form. I'm not able to give you a specific scenario of how there could be difficulty in this house and area, but there could definitely be some difficulty with teachers and teachings in a general sense, especially after I told you about your ascendant with Leo, with Shukracharya and Shravana Nakshatra, where Mahabali didn't listen to his guru and he lost all his land. There is definitely that theme, and is definitely supported with Virgo being in the 9th house. Then we go look at the 10th house. The 10th house is Libra. The 10th house is associated with the career, obligations to society, maybe like the relationship with father figure. And then this is the sign where Saturn is exalted, Sun is debilitated, and what else do I have to say? Your career could basically revolve around you being an ambitious business person who could form partnerships with people to achieve a common goal, as I explained in my Libra video. Career revolves around tight, close, intimate relationships with people. If you look at the the Libra video, I said that Libra is a sign of like business, career, goal-oriented people. Chitra, the first nakshatra in Libra, the yoni animal is a tiger. Then you have a buffalo in Swati, and then you have a tiger again in Vishaka. The tigers sound more ferocious than a lion, and they're just very intelligent, and they don't need to hunt and kill in packs to get their prey. And the deity Ayappa, who is the offspring of Shiva and Vishnu in the incarnation of a woman, Ayappa is depicted riding on like the back of a tiger with a little army of cubs of tigers following him. So tigers are like symbolic to me of, especially nakshatra wise, you look at the lores of like overcoming seemingly impossible obstacles. And buffaloes maybe can be associated with just being, very ambitious, very strong and bullheaded and hard-headed and determined and driven. Because I believe buffaloes, when it's a storm, they head right towards the storm. It's like, in a sense, the best way to get over something is to go through it. So buffaloes, they walk and head and go right through a storm versus running from the storm. They'll head towards the storm. So we see that ambitious, that drive, that determination of Libra. And Libra originally comes in the 7th house of relationships, your spouse. To have a good relationship, you gotta sort of have to fight for it. You gotta sort of you don't want it to end. You don't want to quit. You don't want to throw in the towel. You got to keep working on it. You're just not going to run away from the adversities and the backlash. You trying to secure a business deal, and the person that you're trying to pitch your deal to is turning down the idea, rejecting the idea. You just don't run away. You head towards them. You face the obstacles and do what it needs to be done to meet whatever it is your client is asking so that you can seal the deal. You're making temporary partnerships and alliances to achieve a common goal that could be seen and associated with Libra, and those skills and attributes can be highlighted in the 10th house of career for the Capricorn ascendant, especially if this is being a sign of Saturn's exaltation. Saturn dealing with orderly, structuredly things and discipline. We could see that, those skills and all those things I just said are really highlighted and focused in the 10th house for Capricorn ascendant. We could see that the Capricorn ascendant person, they probably just want to be their own boss, with Libra being in the 10th house. They want to be their own boss. They want to go out there into the field, into the jungle, and I don't know. I just get the sense they just want to be their own boss. That's what I just feel and see. If anything comes to my mind with the 10th house, I'll double back, but I don't believe I have anything to see. I'll just say that these are just very goal, ambitious people who maybe want to have people be up underneath them. Especially with Leo. Especially with, Taurus in the 5th house. And Taurus being a sign of obsession and lust. Which takes us to the opposite of the 5th house and the opposite of Taurus. The 11th house with Scorpio. And there's a lot that can be said. because Scorpio is ruled by Mars, co-ruled by K2, coming from the 8th house originally of sex, death, transformation, and trauma. And the 11th house is associated with large social network circles, organizations, and gains. And the eldest sibling. The eldest sibling could experience maybe some type of surgery or whatever. Or because this is where Moon is debilitated, and Scorpio is just like Taurus, except that Scorpio could be associated with anxiety and paranoia and insecurity, and also obsession, due to like 2 out of 3 of the nakshatras in Scorpio being associated with Indra in some shape or form. There could be some anxiety and paranoia wherever Scorpio is. We could see that maybe, and there's so many ways or things I could probably say and throw against the wall and see if it sticks with this sign in this house. Potentially, maybe because when you think about it, because the 6th house is your enemies, the obstacles, enemies, and stuff that you have to face. 6 from the 6 is the 11th house. The higher form of Virgo is Aquarius. The higher form of the 6th house is the 11th house. So it's like your enemies are now in the 11th house. The 11th house is real interesting because 12 from the 12th is the 11th. The 12th house is associated with loss and foreign, isolated, faraway things. So the 11th house could be a house of not only gains in large social network circles and organizations, but it could also be a house of public enemies, public disputes. And these public disputes can incur losses. Your eldest sibling, if you have an elder sibling, could maybe be paranoid and anxious or whatever, insecure of your success or your gains in your network circle, and they could be like your enemy and cause some type of issue for you with your career and your network circles or whatever, or your network circles or whatever, people that you network with, hence the name, large organizations and groups. You just don't get along with people. They could be maybe paranoid and anxious and insecure about you and what you have going on. And or you could have paranoia and fear and insecurity over your network circle and group. You may be the one that don't trust them and are anxious about them and don't trust their behaviors and activities. But there's some past life karma that will be going on. One of those type of 3 things might likely happen with Capricorn ascendant, where they could maybe just feel stabbed and betrayed by their eldest sibling, their people in their community and network circles, or maybe you just don't trust them and you maybe sabotage things yourself. But that fear of maybe losing your position, or your network circle and elder sibling feel like they could lose their position due to what you got going on, could be a prominent role or theme that could play out with Scorpio being in the 11th house. And then, like I said, it's some type of past life thing, because K2 is associated with microscopic things and things of the past, things that you have dealt with that you may no longer have an interest in, but you still sort of got to deal with it in this lifetime because it's in your damn chart. What else do I have to say? Make sure I'm not missing nothing in my notes. Yes, with very interesting, like I said, because Pisces is in the 3rd house. 3rd house is your younger sibling. 3rd house is your friends. And then you have Scorpio in the 11th. And 12th from the 12th is the 11th. So when we look at that third house for Capricorn ascendant, and when we look at that 11th house, your immediate friends, and then your large organizations and network circles and groups, people in your community, we can see the Capricorn ascendant person may have some issues or experience some losses and maybe some betrayals or some kind with that third house and that 11th house, which is common and makes sense when you're the king, when you're the conqueror, when you're sitting on the throne, when you want to be your own boss, when you have great dreams and ambitions, you have a large movement, or you have a big dream. You can't do it on your own. It requires many different moving individual pieces and parts. And along those many individual pieces and parts, there could be people who could not align with your goals and dreams and visions, and they could try to sabotage it, or you could sabotage it by holding on to it and being blind by what you want to see and love for these people, which happens all the time with people and successful people. You got to cut some people off to get to the top or stay to the top. It's just like leading some revolutionary revolt or whatever, and there's like one black person who sells themselves out to they sell themselves out, and I don't know, the whole party and plan or whatever you had organized falls apart. I'm sorry I just sort of spaced out, but I'm getting burnt out. So now the 12th house, the final house. The 12th house is Sagittarius, and the 12th house is associated with foreign things, isolation, jails and hospitals and meditation and sleep. And the 12th house, originally associated with Pisces, can be a very spiritual, abstract place and house, because people, they go to jail, they become very creative. They start doing poems and rapping and rhymes, and they get connected to God, and they start drawing and sending these beautiful love letters to women at home. Near-death experiences, being in hospitals and stuff, make you closer to God. Being far away in nature or in another land and country and meditating can bring you closer to God or some higher divinity and form. And then you have Sagittarius here. Originally come from the 9th house, where the father and father figure resides. Yeah, where the father or father figure resides, the teacher and stuff. So we could see that maybe when you're in isolated places like a hospital or a jail or near water, because the 12th house can represent being near water, or when you're meditating or when you're asleep, maybe intelligence and guidance and direction comes to you when you are in another land, like another country, somewhere outside of your state that you was born in. When you're isolated and meditating or near water, maybe information and guidance and direction comes to you. Answers come to you. Let me look at what my notes say. Yes, knowledge and teachers could come to you in faraway, isolated places. You could maybe teach and give guidance. Yeah, you could probably be the one professing the knowledge. You might teach and give guidance in or to places outside of the country or state that you was in. It's like going to jail and trying to reform and teach some class to prisoners so that they'll have something to fall back on when they get out. Or you could experience losses of teachers and guidance, because they could be far and hard to find, because the 12th house is a house of loss. So it went in with Sagittarius being associated with like a professor, a teacher, and the 12th house being far away, isolated places. You maybe set up shop somewhere where you're teaching something. You be teaching some trade, some business course, some class, in some recreational center, in some jail, or somewhere in another country. You could be delivering some message, teaching other people, giving them some class. And or with Sagittarius originally coming from the 9th house of teachers and the 12th house being associated with things of loss, we could see maybe on the other hand, you would have a hard time finding your teacher, finding direction, finding guidance could be hard. So your teacher or teachings could come in isolation, and or it could just be very hard for you to maybe acquire that direction and guidance and teaching that you are looking for, and or you may be the one doing the teaching in a faraway, isolated place behind closed doors. You could be teaching and building and uplifting people or something of that kind. And that is all I have to say for Capricorn ascendant. I hope that this video gave you a lot of knowledge, clarity, and insight on what happens if you are a Capricorn ascendant. And what I say for these ascendants, you could apply basically for planets and signs. You just, if you got like your Venus in this sign, you know that that the women in your life or the romantic partners and the general sense that you attract, they will experience the type of things that I just said to you. And yes, the reason that this lighting sucks is because I'm recording this in my room and not in the kitchen where the lighting is better. I ain't gonna stunt. I saw like a big ass bug and that shit scared the fuck out of me, and I could not stop looking at that bug while recording this video. So I brought it to my fucking room where the lighting doesn't really capture my face all that well, but you don't need to see my fucking face. You just need the knowledge. I'm done. Thank y'all for listening and watching and still being subscribed, and I'll see you on my next video.